100 men or more could ever do. I bless the rains down.
All right. Welcome everyone to Spare a Few Minutes with. My name is Steve. I'm part of the KDA board, and I'm super excited for today's chat. We have a phenomenal panelist on the talk to talk about their experience with kidney donation, with their experience with climbing to amazing feats of elevation, I guess you could say. And I want to definitely pop up right now if you guys are available. Katie and Dan, we're going to share a great conversation about their experience, like I said, with everything kidney donation. So before this chat even gets started, I'd like to say if you have questions for them, please put that in the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout the event. And without that, definitely want to get started because we don't have much time. So first of all, Katie and Dan, welcome so much. Thank you very much for joining us. Katie, I'll just start with you. Thank you again for joining us. What made you... Tell us kind of just your overall story, who you are, where you're from, what you would like to do, and we'll kind of start there.
Okay. Katie, I am originally from Kansas City, but I currently live in Denver. I work in a nonprofit fundraising and graphic design. And I guess my activities, hiking, especially living in Colorado, skiing, just getting outside, and more boring things like painting and reading.
Those are boring, by the way.
But yeah,
So
that's pretty much me.
Tell us about your donation. When did you donate? What was the reason for that? Kind of a little overview of that.
Yeah, I donated on September 25th, 2018. So it's been a while. I donated to my mom, actually. And for me, I didn't even think twice about it. So it's my mom. And I didn't even know people donated altruistically. So meeting everyone has been pretty amazing. Pretty great people. But yes, so I donated. Let's see, my process was a little different because I donated in Kansas City where my mom lives, but I was in Denver. So I had to travel to Kansas City for like a 2-day kind of thing where I met everyone at KU Health Systems and went through all the testing and just talked to all the doctors. And so it was about a day and a half of that kind of stuff. And then it took a little over a month, I'd say, because they had to follow up on a few things. And then once they approved it, we scheduled my surgery for, I think, 3 weeks later, because I wanted to jump in there and get it done, both for my work schedule, and my mom was hesitant to let me donate just because she's a mom and she doesn't want her kid to go through anything, difficult or anything like that. So once I got her to agree, I was like, let's go, let's do it. So my whole process was probably 3 months total from when I contacted the hospital to donating.
Went pretty fast, it sounds.
Yeah.
Dan, thanks for joining us. Tell us, who you are, where you're talking to us from, and just overview. I know you can go into probably a lot of detail, but an overview of your story about donation.
Thanks, Steve. Good to be here. I'm currently just outside of Portland, Oregon, but I grew up in Wisconsin in the Midwest. And things I like to do, some similar to Katie. I love being outdoors, hiking, mountain biking, skiing, reading. I have a 4-year-old, so hanging out with him, playing with him is also fun and part of dad duties as well. And I donate to my dad. And like Katie, I would donating kidney was not on my radar at all. I was not even aware, like Katie, about non-directed donors. And so he had kidney disease for a long time, and we actually thought that there's something else, it would be the reason that for his health going bad. But it slowly became more of an issue. And I think when he finally reached out to family members about considering being a donor, I think his kidney functioning was at about 13%. So it was a ticking time bomb in many ways. But kind of was similar in terms of the pace of what I think. I remember he kind of casually sent an email like, "Hey, if you're interested in donating a kidney, and I have 4 biological siblings, reach out to them as well as other relatives. And then I was living in Denver, Colorado at the time, and he was going to have the surgery at Mayo Clinic. So I flew down there to go through the testing process, and then passed through all those things. And then actually I was flying back with my wife to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and we were in Minneapolis in the airport. My dad calls me and he's like, they have an opening in 3 days to do the surgery. And I'm like, what? And so Jill and I talked and we're like, let's do this. And so, yeah, it happened to be his birthday when I donated my kidney to him. So, yeah, there were some things that were aligned for that.
Wow. Did you, Dan, know anyone or have experience with donation, living donation, especially before this process, or is this all new to you?
It's interesting because after, and I right away said I'll do it. There was never hesitation. It's my dad. I wanted to do what I could to help him. I found out after I agreed to be a donor that one of my aunts, not on my dad's side, on my mom's side, had actually donated to a friend. So yeah, so that was interesting, and to kind of get her perspective on it.
Definitely. And Katie, same question for you. I find interesting. Did you have experience at all knowing people or family members who went through either donation in general or especially living donation? Ooh, I can't hear you.
Sorry, of course I muted myself.
Yeah.
Now I know someone who donated to their husband, but I didn't really get a chance to talk beforehand. I didn't even research the surgery. I didn't even know that they added my kidney to my mom instead of like taking one away. So she has 3 and I have 1. Had no idea. I just showed up that morning and I was ready to go and excited, and probably should have done some research, but maybe it was best for me.
Sometimes it's better to know research. Sometimes it's better to know research.
Yeah, I think that fit my anxiety level. Just don't even look at anything, show up. But
so Katie, you said you obviously hiking, you're a very active person before donating. Were you afraid that you said you didn't do much research. So were you at all afraid maybe some of the activity would decrease or go away after donating with the recovery process?
I didn't think too much about it before the surgery. I hiked occasionally. I did like regular exercise programs. I liked running, things like that. But since it was my mom, I didn't really think about it. When I went to that whole day and a half thing at the hospital, they did say, I think it was just essentially continue to be healthy, drink a lot of water, and you can only take like Tylenol. So that was pretty much their, assessment of what will change in your life. So yeah, I didn't think too much about it. I knew right afterwards that I wouldn't be able to exercise for, I think they said about 6 weeks or so. And I think that made me a little nervous at the time, just because I felt like I was in pretty good shape and I'm not used to just hanging out for that amount of time. So I was a little worried about how I would handle that, but it turned out fine. So.
Dan, did you have about the same 6-week grace period? I'm assuming. I saw you kind of nodding there. What did you do during that recovery process of the 6 weeks to kind of, obviously sometimes you're resting a lot, but did you do things that were not active, Dan, that were lower, like walking or things you do kind of help your mind from going crazy, from not being active like you were before for the 6 weeks?
Yeah, that was when people kind of ask me about, the recovery process. I'm like, there's a recovery to it, but I think the psychological part was a little bit, I underestimate. I'd never had a major surgery before, and I'm not a person that can sit still a whole lot. So I think, and at the time we had 2 75-pound dogs, which I couldn't walk or run with, and I was pretty active before. So I think that part was like, I'm not sure how you can prepare someone for that, but I was a little bit. The other part that I don't know if Katie experienced this or you, Steve, but like how tired I would get. I just was like, I'd never experienced. I remember one time I was doing the dishes and I got halfway through and I told my partner, I'm like, Jill, I need to take a nap. Like, I was just exhausted. And so, you know, it eventually goes away. But that part, I was like, okay, that's nothing I had experienced to that level before.
Jill sitting there like it's 10 o'clock day, it's 10 a.m. Like
Exactly.
it's 10 a.m. tradition. Come on, man. You used to be running around the block here.
Yeah, I know, very much like, really? She was just like, you
That's
can't
funny.
power through this?
For those who are watching it, I'll say it again. If you have any questions for Dan and Katie, we're going to talk about, as we're doing now, their story about donating their kidney. And I'm definitely going to talk a lot about their amazing feats of climbing Kilimanjaro and the hikes in Guatemala. We'll get to that in a second. But if you have questions about either one, please put them in the chat and I'll ask them throughout the chat. Now I want to jump to Katie, just a little bit more about recovery because we're athletes. We're worried about, as we've been talking about, what it's going to be like. So can you talk about that you went 6 weeks with, we'll say, very little to light activity. Then what was that like after 6 weeks? Did you have a ramp up period where you were? Kind of talk about that.
Yep. So I actually probably went about 8 weeks. I was in the hospital. I know a lot of people will share like, oh, I was there for one night. I was there for 2 nights. I think I was there for 4 nights. Honestly, it all just kind of blurred together. There was a Say Yes to the Dress marathon. I'd fall asleep. I'd wake up. It was still on. I didn't know what day it was. And then I was pretty like chill for a solid 4 weeks. I think I stayed in Kansas City for almost 4 weeks, just watching Chiefs football games and movies with my mom. It was pretty lovely, actually. I enjoyed it. But kind of like Dan said, I was so tired. We would occasionally go on like short walks. My dad would take me kind of up around the block a bit and back to visit a neighbor, and I was done. But I went back to work. I was lucky to be able to have a lot of time off. And I went back to work at 4 weeks, and there's like a hill from the parking lot up to where my office is. And that I had to take like a break halfway up the hill. My first day back, I did half days for the first few days. So I was definitely experienced that feeling really tired thing. So I ended up just taking my time, and I didn't do like a real workout again until I think maybe it was 7 to 8 weeks when I was like visiting some friends. We went to this workout class thing, and I was like, all right, here we go. So yeah, I gave myself plenty of time, and I'm glad I did.
And did you know anything different? The 8 weeks, 7 weeks work class, was everything good on your end? Yeah.
It was pretty good. Yeah. I think I gave myself a good amount of time. You know, an extra 2 weeks of your life isn't going to just ruin your fitness level, but it can keep you from hurting yourself or anything like that. So I felt pretty good at that workout. I mean, I didn't go all out, but I remember being surprised.
Okay, so let's talk about your amazing climbs you both did. We got Kilimanjaro, we got Guatemala here. Katie, since yours was 2022, we'll kind of start with you earlier in the timeline here. How did that opportunity come about? Were you prepared for it? I want to know where your mind was in, whenever you got the phone call or the email, what was that like for you? Because I'm assuming maybe first time climbing that. I'm making assumption.
Yeah, definitely the first time. I was actually on the board of KDA at the time. I was on the founding board. And the whole idea for climbing Kilimanjaro came out of a couple members of the board, and then they were just going to do it. And then it became like, let's all do it. And then it just became a KDA thing. So I was really lucky that I was on the board. And so I was kind of offered a spot, if you will. And I helped with kind of the application process and getting people going and setting it up. There were other people who did just amazing work on setting it up. I was just helping a bit. So I was really lucky to be able to get to go on it and experience it. And I knew a bunch of people that went on my climb. Most of them I'd never met in person, but yeah, I got to know a lot of them through the climb. And beforehand, I had hiked, being in Colorado, I'd hiked a few 14ers just because I'm the type where I'm like, let's just go do it. But I didn't hike a ton generally. So I really had to amp that up. I started maybe 9 or 10 months ahead of time, hiking almost every weekend and building up. So yeah.
Dan, what about you? Guatemala came, the email or whatever. What was it like for you? How did that opportunity arise for you?
Well, I think it kind of got on my radar when I saw Katie and that crew do Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's really cool. And I didn't know if I could dedicate that much time, but I'm like, if something like that comes around again, it's definitely something I'd be interested in. And so, so I go to Mom, like the timing kind of worked well for me. And I'm like, let's just do it. And I think I only knew one person on the hike. But part of it too was not just to bring awareness, but like, it's pretty cool to meet other people who have done something you've done. It's fairly unique. And so just that community aspect was something that drew me in as well.
I think that's very true. I like that idea. Katie, talk to us. Maybe people on this call or will watch later don't know really. They might know what Kilimanjaro is. They might know where it is. But what did you do? It was hard. How long was it? What's the elevation? Like you mentioned, you did a lot of 14,000 feet back in Colorado. But touch us over. If you were a 30-second elevator pitch, how would you describe hiking Kilimanjaro?
Absolutely amazing and really hard in many ways. But I was actually surprised. A lot of people don't know where it is. It's in Africa, in Tanzania, on the border of Kenya. So over on the east side. And we took the longest route. I can see there are some of my climbing friends on this call, and they're gonna judge me for this, but I think it's called Lamosha route. Somebody help me with that. But so it's the longest one. It helps you get acclimated because our group, there were a ton of climbers from all over the United States. There were some of us from high elevation, but most people weren't. So it's a really good route to take if you aren't like a crazy hiker that lives at high altitude. And I really enjoyed it. We slowly went up, and then we kind of go up and then down and then up and a little down. And then we kind of slept for like 2 hours the night before going up to the top. Because we started, I think at 11:30 p.m. to be there for sunrise. So it was a long last night, very steep, short, but steep. So it was like 3 miles, but just right on up there. But yeah, that route was absolutely amazing because we got to see all different kind of ecosystems. There were monkeys the first night everywhere, and then we didn't really see many animals after that, but just ridiculously amazing plants. And I highly recommend it. It was nice that it spread out over 8 days because it gave you a lot of time to get used to it. But I think for me, the most challenging part was just mentally. I had never backpacked. I had never I hadn't camped since I was a kid. So just the planning for months ahead of time and then showing up and it's there and you haven't slept in like days and you show up and you're ready to go. So it was emotional. It was a lot, but it was really cool. And I'm glad it was so long because by the last day you were like, oh my gosh, it's over. What's going on? So
Emily shouted you out. She said, yes, it was Lamosha. So you were right on the name. So good job with memory. You went up with, I'm assuming everyone donated their kidney on this hike for you. What was that like knowing that these other dozen, 2 dozen, however many were up there? How many were there? First question. And then secondly, what did that mean to show that these X number of people can still live their lives either at the same fitness level or even at a greater fitness level after donating a kidney?
Yeah, we had 22 donors, a few other people. We had a videographer there, someone's amazing husband who took some great photos, and then the owners of the company that did the tour or the hike with us were all there. So it was a big group, but there were 22 donors. And I've already forgot, oh, the group. So it was really amazing. Everybody, I mean, if you're giving up a kidney, you're probably a nice person, generally. And since a lot of people on the trip were actually altruistic donors or just kind of met the person right beforehand, like saw a sticker on someone's car, that kind of thing. And so they essentially donated to a stranger. So they were extra amazing people, generous people. So the trip went really well. I mean, everyone was really supportive. They're definitely not, we were split up into 2 groups. And I mean, you know, it was a great experience. Everyone was just so kind, so supportive, helping each other out. And even the guides kind of gave a little speech at a certain point saying that they had never been with a group that didn't get into arguments and didn't have drama or anything like that. Like they were very impressed.
Wow.
So it's definitely a great group of people to be a part of.
That's amazing. This is definitely some powerful there. You said that was probably the first time you met most of those people. You had Zoom calls beforehand, I'm assuming, but being there and not having any arguments is amazing feat. To what you said, a lot of kidney donors are very kind individuals. It makes you a little bit kind, which I think got to be. Dan, similar questions for you, but I think for your hike, it wasn't just one. I'm not downgrading your hike, Katie, at all, but it wasn't one climb. It was a lot of different. I think it was like 3 volcanoes, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I want you to go into that 30-second kind of spiel to people who might not know exactly what you did.
Yeah, so we did 3 volcanoes, and they designed it. I don't know if they did it intentionally or not, but each one got a little tougher as we went. So it was Pacaya, Catenango, and then Atitlan was the last one. And I had done hiking before, a lot in Colorado, and then obviously now in Oregon. But this was unique. Hiking volcanoes it's just the rocks, and just the vegetation. It's just a very unique experience in general. So the first one was like kind of we're gonna break you in. It was a few miles, but it was an active volcano, which was incredibly unique. So we actually had pizza up in the volcano that was made from the heat of the volcano, which was an incredible experience. And then the last 2 were definitely, speaking from my own experience, were certainly challenging. Catenango was just over 13,000, and then Atitlan was a 12 to 14 hour day of hiking. So that was, so I think we left for that one at 3 a.m. in the morning. But similar to Katie, just an incredible group. Just I think we had 18 kidney donors. And then one of the people that ran the company was there, and then just incredible guides as well. Then we had a videographer there as well. So just kind of bonded really quickly. And I think when you've gone through this experience, you already have a shared experience to talk about. And as Katie mentioned, if you've donated a kidney, there's a lot of good in you. You're not meeting people who have ill will in any way. So yeah, I would recommend it. And Guatemala is just a beautiful country. Like I told one of the guides, like this is not a country I would have picked to visit. And now I would definitely go back for sure.
So Dan, you had pizza on your climb, and Katie saw monkeys on her climb. So I don't know which one's a little bit better here, but you both had great experiences. It's great, just a lot of different experiences. Dan, I kind of said this to Katie, but I'd love to hear your response with your unique trip. All these people that donate their kidney, and to see how powerful it is, but they're them still being so active. They're still out there doing more activity. Like, would you have climbed this if you didn't donate? Probably not. So what does that show for you, for your outlook on life, and the ripple effect that trip that you went on has on other people who might be considering donating? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, these are everyday people, right? I mean, I think this is not people who are of heroic means, or anything of that sort. It's really these typical people, and it's kind of taking some of that, like, I can't do that piece off of it. There are people from all walks of life, people from different experiences. I think we had, the age range was 36 to I think 58. In terms of that. So yeah, just I think the idea that, and I think I'm trying to think how many different states were represented, but it was I think it was maybe 14 different states. So just getting to see that, and it kind of brought back memories of my experience, and it also a good reminder for me, like, sometimes I don't want to speak about my story because it's like self-aggrandizing, but it's like, if I don't speak about it, there's not a lot of us out there who are kidney donors. So we need to say something. And so I think, I'm a professor. I tell my college students, this is what I did. And it's more because if I can get it on their radar, and they're going to donate in a month, but maybe 10 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, when they might reconsider it. And they know I'm just an average person.
Katie, do you feel similar to what Dan said? I find that very common when I talk to kidney donors, that it was hard maybe to talk about it first because you don't want to be like, me. I'm just a normal person. In all honesty, both of you maybe on this call, donating kidney is not your common person. But did you feel that hard to talk about it at first, and then it got easier over time? Or maybe your story was different. I would like to hear about your story.
I have found that it's easier to talk about it on something like this than it is like just in my regular life with people, like at work or something. Because I actually met the founder of KDA when I came back to Denver from my surgery. She lived there at the time, and she'd reach out on Instagram. And so I joined kind of a group in Denver and the One Kidney Club. And we ended up being on the news at one of our events. And I found it really easy to talk about it in that kind of atmosphere. But it was definitely the like one-on-one, I'll say something without realizing it. Like I'll say something about donating at work, and then somebody's like, wait, what? And I just get really embarrassed. I'm like, oh, I forgot. Yeah, I did this thing. So it's definitely more awkward in regular life, but it is also important to like talk about and especially answer questions if people have questions, to put their mind at ease if it's something they've ever considered or anything like that. So I try to make myself, but yeah, it can be awkward.
I have one more for both of you, and then I have one question waiting in the chat. But if anyone else is watching has a question, please put that in the Q&A or chat. I'll grab it and toss it over to Dan or Katie. Dan, we'll jump over to you. What's kind of next for you? You know, what else are you doing to spread the message that we're sharing here about just powerful kidney donation, maybe with your kids, showing what's possible after donation, KDA, kind of what are you doing out there in your life, or is, you know, kind of talk about what's next with you. You gotta be my friend.
Sorry, muted. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I was thinking about that, and I'm like, I like to have something to do as a goal. So this summer, backpacking is on the list for sure. This is my son Gus. Hey, buddy, hang on. Give me a moment, buddy. And definitely, I've been getting more mountain biking out here. And then at some point I haven't done a half marathon since post donation. So I don't know if that's this year or down the road, but it's definitely on the list to do for sure.
And Katie, same to you, kind of what's next for you in your journey here?
I mean, activity wise, not too much different. I'm planning on more hiking this summer. I'd love to do some different 14ers. There's another donor that went to Kilimanjaro with me who lives up in the mountains, and he has done every single 14er after donation. He did all of them. So I am going to convince him to take me on at least one or two new ones. I hope we can have friends come out and hike. But yeah, those are really, I'm just enjoying my life. I'm not doing anything too crazy. And then, you know, with kidney donation and spreading the word, I just try and help out with KDA whenever I can, help on things like that. I know there are a ton of opportunities with committees and things like that. So I'm hoping as time goes on, I can get more and more involved again, jump back into that. And yeah, just try and keep talking to people. I know someone who might need a kidney, and so I'm just kind of ready to be that person that anyone can ask questions to and try and put myself out there more than I normally feel comfortable with.
Love that. That's amazing, both of you guys. Thank you so much. My question I have, just one right now. It's for you, Katie, actually, from Emily. It says, we kind of talked about it before, but like just because the question, maybe dive in a little bit more. Do you feel like your donation has impacted your athletic pursuit after your 8 weeks recovery?
Thank you for the question, Emily. She climbed, she was on the Kilimanjaro trip with me. She's fantastic. But yeah. So not necessarily. I actually had retired from running before my donation or long distance running, but I kind of had an opportunity to run the Chicago Marathon a year after donating. I ran it with my cousins for a charity. And so that kind of shoved me right back in there. I'm glad I did that because it really made me jump in. So it's nice to have a goal after you've donated and recovered, set up a goal to get yourself back into it. So I'm really glad I did that. You know, it was hard, but I was impressed with myself, I guess, if I want to brag, that I ran a marathon a year after donating. And I dove back in. I think I was still tired. I would say a good 3 months or so, I was more tired than I normally was. But but I was still able, I started cycling because it was in the winter, cycle classes, and got into it. And I mean, 4 or 5 months out, I just felt like completely normal and just like I was before, and maybe even a little better, I guess. Took better care of my health. I drink a lot more water. So
That's
I
amazing.
will echo the water comment. That is the only side effect I've noticed is if I don't drink a lot of water and I'm doing something that's physically exerting, I'll get headaches that are a little more intense than pre-surgery. So still totally worth it. That's the only side effect.
We have Jenny says, "Go Dan, love your buddy." And then a question from Stephanie. I'll toss it over to you, Dan. What do you think has been the most surprising aspect of the donation experience?
Oh, good. Thank you. 'Cause Jenny's awesome. And so, and if it's Stephanie I'm thinking of, she's great too. But I'm sure if not, still great. Surprising aspect. I mean, community is a big one. The people I've met that I wouldn't have met because of the surgery has been just incredible.
Okay, all good.
Life as a parent.
All good.
But I think the other part is I think I'm just grateful for my health, right? That I was able to do this is pretty incredible, and that my life has gotten better, if nothing else, from having done it is just something I'm just always grateful for.
And then one last question, Dan, pizza better up in the mountains or at sea level?
In the mountains, when you're climbing with people who are amazing, I mean, I gotta go with that, Steve. Right?
That's in Jersey. I'm gonna fight you on that, but we'll see. All right, thank you both so much, Katie and Dan. You guys are amazing. You are unique human beings for everything you do and spreading just a positive message of kidney donation. So thank you very much. And to those joining us today and ask questions, thank you very much. We'll be back, I believe, next month with another one of these spare a few minutes. So I appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Good to see you, Katie.